The woman in the wagon. The wagon rattled over uneven ground, its wooden wheels creaking beneath the weight of supplies. Ethan Carter guided the reins with practiced ease, his eyes fixed on the dusty horizon. He had grown used to silence since his wife's passing 2 years earlier, and the long, solitary trips across country roads suited a man who carried grief like a second skin. The open air asked nothing of him. The world beyond was harsh, but predictable, and he preferred it that way. Yet this morning felt different. When he had risen at dawn to check his wagon, he noticed something unusual, the faintest rustle beneath a pile of blankets near the back. At first, he thought a stray animal had crawled inside during the night. But as he pulled back the cover, his heart jolted. A young woman lay curled there, her face pale and streaked with dust. Strands of auburn hair clung to her cheeks, damp with sweat. Beside her, 2 infants, twins, slept soundly, their tiny fists clenched against her torn dress. Ethan froze, hand hovering in the air. A stranger, injured, vulnerable, and children too small to fend for themselves. The woman stirred, her eyelids fluttering open. Pain flickered across her features as she tried to sit upright. "Please," her voice was barely a whisper, raw and broken. "Don't send us back." "Easy now," Ethan said, his voice steady though his mind churned with questions. "You're safe, but I need to know. Who are you? What happened?" She pressed her lips together, torn between fear and exhaustion. "My name is Clara," she murmured finally. She lowered her gaze to the infants as though their presence explained everything. "These are my children." Ethan studied her closer. The bruises along her arm told a story she hadn't yet spoken. He noticed how she flinched at the sound of his boots on the wooden planks, the instinct of someone who had learned to expect cruelty. Whoever she was running from, he guessed it wasn't hunger or poverty alone. He considered turning her away. A man traveling with another man's betrothed, or worse, another man's wife, risked more than gossip. There could be blood. Still, Ethan could not ignore the sight before him. A battered woman and 2 babes in need. His conscience refused silence. "I'll take you as far as the next town," he offered carefully. "You can find rest there. Food. Perhaps someone you trust." Clara's eyes filled with panic. She shook her head, clutching her babies tighter. "No, they'll find me there. He'll find me." Ethan frowned. "He?" Her lips trembled, but she gave no name. Only a broken confession slipped out. "I couldn't stay. He would have destroyed us." The word struck Ethan like a hammer blow. A cruel husband, perhaps. Or a fiancé who valued possession over love. The truth remained half-buried, but one thing was certain. This woman was running from something, or someone, dangerous. Ethan's grip on the reins tightened. He had promised himself never to be entangled in another person's suffering. Grief had taught him the futility of trying to save what fate had already marked. Yet here she was, thrust upon his path by chance or providence. Could he really drive her away? Clara reached for a canteen at her side, but her hand shook so violently she nearly dropped it. Without thinking, Ethan steadied it for her, their fingers brushing. A small, fragile moment, but enough to send warmth rippling through the cool armor he had worn for years. The babies stirred then, one letting out a soft whimper. Clara hushed them, rocking gently despite her own weariness. Ethan's gaze lingered. He saw not only her fragility but also a fierce determination, the kind only a mother could muster. He cleared his throat, breaking the silence. "Then it seems you've nowhere safe to go." Clara looked up at him, eyes shining with both gratitude and fear. "Only away," she whispered. The wagon jolted forward as Ethan urged the horses onward. He made no further promises, not yet, but the decision settled heavy in his chest. Until he knew more, until he could judge the threat, he would keep her with him. The road stretched ahead, uncertain and long. Clara rested her head against the wooden side, exhaustion finally pulling her back into uneasy sleep. Ethan kept his gaze on the horizon, though his thoughts circled around her words. "He will find me." Who was this man that haunted her so deeply? And how long before he appeared on the same road, demanding what Ethan could not willingly surrender? The wagon rolled on beneath a rising sun, carrying them all toward answers neither of them was ready to face. The unspoken pull. The road wound through fields of tall grass, the morning sun breaking into golden shards across the wagon's worn boards. Ethan guided the horses in silence, his thoughts tangled in the presence of the woman and her children. Clara sat opposite him now, back braced against the side, the twins cradled in her lap. Exhaustion still marked her face, but the stiffness in her posture revealed a determination to appear stronger than she felt. They had traveled for hours without speaking. Finally, Ethan broke the quiet. "How old are they?" Clara glanced down at the babies, a faint smile softening her lips. 4 months. Rose and Daniel. They've only ever known turmoil. The tenderness in her voice caught Ethan off guard. He had expected bitterness, yet she looked at her children as though they were the only fragments of joy left in her world. For a moment, he saw not a stranger but a woman fiercely bound to life through love alone. "You care for them well," he said. Her eyes lifted, a flicker of surprise in them. "And you see that. Most only notice the disgrace of my situation." Ethan frowned. "Disgrace? You're protecting your children. There's nothing disgraceful in that." Clara's smile faltered. She turned away, gazing at the horizon. "Henry would disagree. To him, they are reminders of what he owns. I left before he could twist them into weapons against me." At last, a name. Ethan let it settle. Henry, a man whose shadow loomed larger than any wound on Clara's body. He wanted to ask more, but the tremor in her voice warned him not to press. Instead, he reached into a sack at his side and handed her a small loaf of bread. "Eat. You'll need your strength." She accepted it with hesitation, as though unused to kindness. Their fingers brushed again, and for a breath Ethan felt warmth stir where he had long been cold. He pulled his hand back quickly, forcing his gaze forward. The twins woke soon after, demanding attention with restless cries. Ethan offered to hold one, surprising himself with the words before he had considered them. Clara hesitated, then placed Daniel carefully in his arms. The child's weight was light, yet the responsibility heavy. Ethan rocked him gently, feeling awkward but unwilling to hand him back too soon. Clara watched, eyes softening. "You've done that before." "No," Ethan admitted, "but I once dreamed of it." The air between them thickened with unspoken truths. She studied his face, perhaps sensing the ghost that haunted him. Ethan said nothing more, unwilling to peel open wounds still raw. Yet the look she gave him was one he had not seen since his wife lived, an expression that suggested understanding rather than pity. The day wore on. Clara told fragments of her past in cautious tones. How Henry's wealth had promised security, how his charm had soured into cruelty, how each day had tightened a chain she could no longer endure. Ethan listened without judgment. With each word, he felt his resolve deepen. This woman had not chosen her misery, and she deserved freedom. Still, he wrestled with the danger of his own thoughts. Her betrothed still lived, and she remained bound, if not by love, then by expectation and fear. Allowing his heart to lean toward hers felt like stepping onto forbidden ground. Yet no matter how firmly he resisted, the pull lingered. As dusk approached, they stopped near a stream to rest the horses. Clara knelt to wash her face, the water carrying away the dust of the road. In the fading light, her features seemed almost radiant, though her body still bore the marks of struggle. Ethan turned away quickly, ashamed of the thoughts pressing at the edges of his mind. "You've been kind," she said when she returned to the fire he had built. "More than I deserve." "You deserve far more," he replied before he could stop himself. Silence followed, heavy and electric. The crackle of fire filled the space where words faltered. Clara lowered her gaze, cheeks flushed. Ethan busied himself with the bread, pretending not to notice, though his heart beat harder with each passing second. When the twins drifted back to sleep, Clara sat across from him, her arms wrapped protectively around them. "You don't know what you're risking by keeping us," she whispered. Ethan met her eyes. "Maybe not, but I know what it means to turn away when someone needs me. I won't make that mistake again." For a heartbeat, it seemed she might reach for his hand. Instead, she drew back, retreating into silence. The fire cast shifting shadows over her face, half light and half dark, as if a heart wavered between the same choices. The night deepened. Ethan lay awake beneath the stars, every crack of the fire reminding him of her nearness. He told himself he must remain her protector, nothing more. Yet the memory of her flushed cheeks, her whispered gratitude, lingered long after the flames burned low. And as he drifted into uneasy rest, one thought haunted him above all others. If Henry truly was the man she feared, then this fragile peace could not last. The storm was already on its way. The shadow of Henry. The morning began in uneasy quiet. Mist clung to the fields, veiling the horizon in shifting white curtains. Ethan guided the wagon along a narrow trail, his shoulders tense though his voice remained calm when speaking to Clara. She had slept little, the shadows under her eyes deepening with every mile. The twins rested fitfully against her chest, their soft breaths fragile reminders of what was at stake. Something in the air unsettled Ethan. The silence felt heavier than usual, as though the world itself held its breath. He had learned to trust such instincts during long years on lonely roads. Trouble was near. By noon, the mist had burned away, revealing a lone rider ahead. The figure sat tall on a dark horse, its coat gleaming like polished coal. As the distance shrank, Ethan's pulse quickened. The man's fine coat, sharp posture, an arrogant tilt of his chin spoke volumes before he even spoke. Clara gasped. Her grip on the twins tightened until her knuckles whitened. "It's him," she whispered. "Henry." The rider drew closer, reining his horse with practiced ease. Henry Blackwood's eyes swept over them with disdain before settling on Clara. His smile was thin, cold, and full of ownership. "My runaway bride," he said smoothly. "I knew you wouldn't get far." Clara shrank back, but Ethan shifted slightly, placing himself between her and the rider. Henry's gaze flicked toward him, measuring, dismissing, then narrowing with suspicion. "And who is this?" Henry asked. "Your savior, or your lover?" The accusation struck the air like a blade. Clara's lips parted, but no words emerged. Ethan kept his tone steady. "She was injured. I offered aid. Nothing more." Henry's smirk deepened. "Nothing more. Do not insult me with lies. I know the look of a woman who's forgotten her vows. And I see the hunger in your eyes, Wagon man." Clara flinched, shame and fury warring on her face. Ethan's jaw tightened, but he said nothing. To argue would only sharpen Henry's cruelty. Henry dismounted, boots striking the earth with purpose. He approached the wagon, his hand reaching toward Clara as though she were a possession misplaced. She recoiled, clutching the babies closer. "You belong to me," Henry hissed, voice low but venomous. "You and the children. Did you think you could shame me by fleeing? No. You will return, and you'll learn obedience." Clara's voice finally broke free, trembling but firm. "I will not. I won't raise them in fear. I'd rather die than go back." The words hung heavy, braver than Ethan expected, but dangerous. Henry's eyes darkened, and for a moment Ethan feared he might strike her then and there. Ethan stepped forward, his voice calm but edged with steel. "You heard her. She doesn't want to return." Henry turned slowly, amusement flickering across his features. "And you presume to interfere? Do you know who I am, Wagon man? I could have you beaten, jailed, ruined. You stand in the way of wealth and power far beyond your reach." "I stand in the way of cruelty," Ethan answered. The space between them crackled, tension sharp enough to draw blood. Clara's eyes darted between them, terror and hope colliding within her. For the first time since Ethan had found her, she seemed to believe escape might be possible, but only if he stood firm. Henry stepped closer, lowering his voice to a venomous whisper. "She is mine, and if she has shared even a glance with you, I'll see her punished for it." His gaze shifted to Clara. "Do not mistake his pity for love, my day. Men like him cannot protect you. They can only ruin you." Clara shook her head, tears shining but unshed. Better ruined in truth than caged in lies. The defiance startled Henry, though he masked it quickly with laughter. He mounted his horse again, towering above them. "You'll regret this," he promised. "Both of you. I'll come back for what's mine, and when I do, no wagon and no sentiment will stand in my way." With a sharp tug on the reins, He turned his horse and vanished down the trail, dust rising in his wake. The silence that followed was heavier than before, pressing down on the three souls left behind. Ethan exhaled slowly, forcing his hands to unclench. Clara's face was pale, her body trembling as she clutched the twins. "They won't stop," she whispered. "He'll chase us until he breaks us." Ethan met her gaze, steady and unflinching. "Then we'll make sure he never gets the chance." The words bound them tighter than any vow, a promise of resistance forged in fear and defiance alike. Yet beneath the promise lingered something more dangerous, the awareness that Ethan's protection was no longer only duty. It was personal, fierce, and tinged with forbidden desire. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, Clara leaned against the side of the wagon, eyes glistening but unbroken. Ethan took up the reins once more, guiding them forward into a future shadowed by pursuit. The storm had arrived, and it would not pass quietly. The choice. The wagon rolled into the shelter of a small valley, the last light of evening painting the cliffs in hues of crimson. Ethan guided the horses to a halt beside a grove of trees, his eyes scanning the distance for any sign of pursuit. Clara sat quietly, rocking the twins, though her silence was not peace but the heavy weight of fear. Henry's word from that afternoon still clung to the air. "You'll regret this. Both of you." Ethan set about building a fire, his hands moving with sharp efficiency. Every crack of a branch, every distant echo stirred his nerves. He had faced hardship before, yet this was different. Protecting Clara and the twins meant more than survival. It meant challenging a man whose cruelty was shielded by wealth and influence. Clara's voice broke the silence. "They won't stop, Ethan. You know that, don't you?" He paused, meeting her gaze. The flames reflected in her eyes, casting them bright and uncertain. "Then we'll have to stand where he can't reach." "And where is that?" she asked softly. "Henry's power stretches farther than the land itself. His name opens doors. His coin buys silence." Ethan sat across from her, the fire flickering between them. "Names and coins don't make a man untouchable. His cruelty will undo him." She studied him, as if weighing the depth of his conviction. For a moment, her hand lifted, almost reaching across the fire toward his. Then she pulled back, hugging the twins closer. "You've risked too much already." "Some risks are worth it," Ethan replied, his voice low, steady. Before more could be spoken, the sound of hooves shattered the fragile calm. Shadows shifted at the valley's edge, and Henry emerged once more, torchlight glinting off his polished boots. He had not come alone. Two men trailed behind him, their expressions hard, loyal to coin rather than conscience. Clara rose instinctively, fear flashing across her features. Ethan stood in front of her, his body a barrier. Henry dismounted slowly, savoring the moment. "Did you think I would wait? That I would simply let you vanish into the night?" His smile was cold, eyes glittering with cruel amusement. "No, Clara, you are mine, and I will drag you back if I must." The twins whimpered at her chest. Clara drew herself taller, though her knees trembled. "I'm not yours. I never was." Henry's face darkened, his veneer of charm cracking. "You dare defy me before another man." He gestured toward Ethan. "Is this what you want? To shame me with a common driver?" Ethan's voice cut through the night. "She doesn't belong to you, and you'll not touch her again." The henchman stepped forward, but Ethan's hand went to the axe lying by the fire. His stance was steady, daring them closer. For a long breath, the knight balanced on a knife's edge. Henry sneered, unwilling to deity himself with the fight. "Enough. If you will not come willingly, Clara, then I will take the children. Perhaps that will remind you where your duty lies." Clara's gasp pierced the air. She pressed the twins tighter, desperation sparking into defiance. "You will never have them." Something broke within her then, the fear that had chained her for so long. She stepped from behind Ethan, her voice rising with a strength he had not yet heard. "You call me faithless, yet it was you who betrayed every vow before it was ever spoken. You sought control, not love. You broke us long before I fled." Henry faltered at her words, not from shame but from the sting of defiance. His pride raged, but before he could command his men forward, Ethan moved. His axe caught the firelight as he raised it high, the silent promise of violence halting them in place. "You'll leave," Ethan said, his tone like iron, "or you'll learn tonight that wealth cannot shield you from consequence." The standoff stretched until Henry, calculating, saw no victory worth the risk. With a final glare, half fury, half wounded pride, he turned his horse sharply. His men followed, vanishing once more into the dark. Silence returned, but it was no longer the silence of dread. Clara sank to her knees, tears slipping free at last. Ethan lowered the axe, his breath rough, his heart still thundering. Clara looked up at him, her voice breaking. "You've given me back more than safety. You've given me a choice." Ethan crouched beside her, hesitant, then gently touched her shoulder. "And what do you choose, Clara?" For the first time, her answer came without hesitation. "Freedom. And if freedom means walking beside you, then so be it." The fire flickered between them, casting away the last of the shadows. Clara leaned against him, the twins nestled safely in her arms, while Ethan wrapped his strength around the fragile family fate had delivered into his keeping. The road ahead was uncertain, yet in that valley, beneath the watchful stars, the chains of fear finally broke. Still, Ethan knew Henry's pride would not let the matter rest forever. Somewhere beyond the night, vengeance was already stirring. And so their journey was not an ending, but a beginning, one carved from betrayal, bound by defiance, and tempered in the fragile hope of love.